Well, welcome, friends, to beautiful San Diego. And welcome to the largest gathering of immigration lawyers in the world. There are 3,058 of you here in person, and another 965 of us joining online. So that's amazing. A special heartfelt thanks to Emmy Smith and Catherine Chong and the entire AILA national team. This conference exists because of your hard work and your dedication to AILA members, and we are so appreciative of all of you at AILA staff. And to our conference chair, my very, very good friend, Gail Oshrin. You are so damn good at this. I've had the honor of working with you as a conference chair in the past, and you should be really proud of what you've accomplished here at this conference. And to our host chapter here in California, the San Diego chapter, the chapter chair, Noemi Cruz, and all the other amazing San Diego chapter leaders, thank you for opening your home to all of us. We really appreciate it, and it's been a very warm welcome. But before we get into the very exciting week that we have ahead of us, I want to tell you where I think we are right now as a profession. Because I think we're standing at an inflection point in the history of our profession. Look, immigration lawyers have always lived at the intersection of law and policy and human consequence. And if you know anything about the practice of immigration law, you know that the only constant in our careers is change. Every Friday, we wait with bated breath to see what grenade the administration is going to throw at us this week. So we're built for change. It's in our DNA. But the forces around us and shaping us now in our profession right now are different. Artificial intelligence, a consolidating market, a new generation of lawyers with new expectations for their careers, and most importantly, an administration that is openly hostile to legal immigration and to the rule of law itself. These changes are not temporary, they're structural. And in a moment like this, when we're faced with these decisions, our profession has two choices. We can be a boat in the middle of a hurricane with no sail, no rudders, no oars. We can let the current take us wherever it wants, tossed by every wave at the mercy of the storm. Or we can chart a course. We can trim the sail, we can take the helm and commit and face the storm head on. Because our professions either drift or they decide who they will become. And AILA does not drift. We have a course, we have a compass, we have a sail, and most importantly, we have a crew that knows these waters better than everyone else. So everything that I want to tell you today, everything we did this year, is the story of a bar association that took the helm and committed. We did not drift, we set a course and we committed. And I want to start with something that's not very sexy or exciting. And then I'm going to convince you that it's one of the most important things that this association has done in a generation. Governance. Stay with me, everyone. For years, truly for decades, AILA has tried to modernize how it governs the association. People talked about it, committees studied it, reports got written, they got shelved. Over and over and over again, all of those reports made the same recommendation, and every single time we ran into the same wall, because change is hard. And giving up a seat at the table is even harder. But this year we did it. We took a board of governors that had grown to 93 members. 93. And we built in its place a modern, focused 26-member board that is built to actually govern. Now, I know that can sound different, smaller board, fewer voices. Is that really what we want? Is that really progress? And let me tell you why it is. Because a 93-person board can have a lot of conversations, and our board knows how to have a lot of conversations, but it's hard to make a decision. A 26-member board can do what a board is built for. Think strategically, move quickly, adapt when necessary, and own the future of the organization instead of just reacting to its present. So this was never about fewer voices around the table, but it was about giving those voices a direction and somewhere to go. And I want to be honest with you about what it took to get this done. It took a board willing to look at their own seats and ask the hard question, is this really serving AILA, or is it just serving our tradition? It took leaders with the courage to put politics aside and to put their egos aside, and to vote in some cases to reduce their own role because it was right for AILA. So I want to take this moment in front of the entire association to say to the Board of Governors, thank you for your intentional leadership. Generations of AILA leaders tried to do what you did this year, and they couldn't, and you did. And every member in this room is better for it. And every member who's not in this room in the future is better for it because of your courage. And this is what I mean when I say that we could have kept drifting, we could have left the old structure in place because it was comfortable and let the current carry us wherever it wanted to. But that's not what we did. We built a vessel that can be steered, we decided who we wanted to become, and we committed. And here's what that unlocks. Here's what that kind of reform in an organization unlocks. We are now organizing AILA around a regional model. And that matters more than what it sounds, because if you've ever been part of a small chapter, you know the truth that being an AILA member has not felt the same everywhere. A big chapter with more resources and enormous budgets can offer an experience that is very different for a chapter member from a small chapter run entirely by volunteers who are also running their practices and showing up in court every day. The regional model is how we solve for that. It's how we make the chapter experience more consistent and more equalized across members so that the value of your membership does not depend on your zip code. But it does something way more important than that because it helps us find people. I went to a graduation at Santa Clara this past weekend, and the valedictorian said something that stuck with me. He said, belonging is not something that happens to you by chance. It's an intentional gift given to you by others that you then have an obligation to pass on to other people. And for too long, leadership in this association has felt like a closed loop, like the same paths, the same rooms for the same few who knew how to raise a hand and volunteer. But this regional structure will offer us a real pipeline. It helps us find emerging leaders at the chapter level, raise them up as speakers, writers, litigators, chapter officers, and identify the diverse leaders in every sense of that word who reflect what our membership actually looks like, but who've never been asked. It gives us a way to spot them, develop them, and elevate them from the chapter to the region to AILA national leadership. Every one of us in this room in AILA leadership is here because somebody saw us and told us that we belong. And now we have that same obligation to tap somebody else on the shoulder and tell them that they also belong. So look around you. Someone sitting next to you may be on this stage as a future president of this association. And our job is to make sure that we see them and we find them and that we tap them on the shoulder. So that brings me to something different that you may notice this year when you vote. For the first time under our new structure, you're not only choosing your candidate for secretary of the executive committee, but you'll be voting for candidates from your newly formed regions. This is a historic moment for our association, and it's your association. The ballot is how you steer it. So when it's in front of you, read it. Go to the open forums and ask the candidates the hard questions, and when you see them in the hallways, talk to them, because our association is built around the choices that you make. Now, this is normally the time where I would hand the gavel to your incoming president and you'd be settling in for that person's installation speech, but this year we did one more thing a little different. We aligned our calendar year with our election year, and the timing shifted, which means you're stuck with me for another 6 months until January 2027. Thank you. I'll tell you the truth, I could not be more grateful because 6 months to serve in this association in this consequential moment in our professional history, doing the work that matters, is not a burden. It's an absolute gift, and I intend to use it every day. So let me tell you what you all did this year, because the headlines were grim, but the work that this association did is absolutely extraordinary. And if AILA is the ship, these are the hands on the sail and the rudder, the talent, the staff, the teams who set our course and pulled us through the most treacherous of waters. I'm just going to give you some stats here because I really want you to understand the scope of the work that all of you were able to do. Our education team, led by Emmy Smith, delivered 40 web seminars and 60 roundtables, reaching over 17,000 AILA members, keeping this bar not just busy, but prepared and educated. And when the law changed under our feet almost weekly, they made sure that you all were ready and never caught flat-footed. So when the adjustment of status memo came out in the weekend before Memorial Day, over a long weekend, by Tuesday morning, we had set up a roundtable, we had issued practice advisories, and we literally broke the internet. We had over 2,000 members online and over 4,500 downloads of that roundtable alone. Our communications team, led by George Samaras, handled 1,305 press inquiries and earned AILA 10,815 media mentions. So when this country is arguing about immigration, the people who actually practice it, you all, were in that conversation with the facts. We're reclaiming the narrative, and we are changing the hearts and minds of Americans and people outside of this room every time that we appear in the media, and that is critically important. Our government relations team, led by Shev Dalal-Dehaney and Greg Chen, published 244 practice alerts, 20 policy briefs, 15 client fires, and commented on 24 different regulations and forms. And they pushed back on the record every single time that due process was treated as negotiable. Our practice and professionalism team, led by Reed Trouts, kept us sane, ethical, and equipped, supporting our ethics, wellness, and pro bono work so that you could keep your doors open and your clients served. They provided 9 ethics resources, 15 well-being resources, 10 technology resources that are all mostly AI related, and 30 practice management resources, plus the futures report, which I'll talk about in a minute. And finally, our litigation team, led by Jennifer Coberly, has been busy turning our outrage into briefs and our briefs into victories in the court. We currently have 3 active litigation cases pending and 4 more that we're getting ready to file. And we filed 21 amicus briefs in the courts around the country. Absolutely. And none of that work happens without you, without our volunteers. This year, more than 700 of you raised your hand. You already had full caseloads and full lives and families, but you looked at everything on your plate and you said, I can still help, I can still do it, so put me in. And so, to all of you who wrote the advisories and staffed the committees and answered the message boards and answered listserv questions at midnight and mentored each other and taught each other and liaised with the government and litigated, you govern the association as an officer or a board member. You are AILA. So if you volunteered for AILA this year in any capacity, please stand up so we can all recognize you and thank you. Look around, everyone. This is who does the work, and these are the people we should be thanking for the enormous amount of time that they put into the association. But I'd be doing you a disservice if I told you that everything at AILA this year was business as usual, because it was not. This was the year where it continued to stay personal. And when an administration decides that the courts are an obstacle instead of a foundation for justice, and when it decides that the lawyers who are standing up for due process are the enemy, it comes for our work, it comes for our clients, and this year it kept coming for us as lawyers, for just doing our jobs. This was, when we talk about the tempest and the storm, this is what I'm talking about. But we didn't let it toss us where it wished. We turned into the wind and we fought through it. A year ago on this stage, I told you we would not stay silent, and I launched AILA's Rule of Law Task Force, the AROL. And a year later, I can tell you it has been everything we needed it to be. The shield for our profession, the voice for our values, and the line between tyranny and justice. This year, the task force documented the attacks, the warrantless entries, the assaults on the right to counsel, and they turned them into evidence. They've been monitoring and reporting on impartiality in the immigration courts so that when our members walk into an immigration courtroom stacked against them, they have the tools to name it on the record. And when this administration came after individual lawyers with disciplinary complaints and sanction motions meant to make the rest of us afraid, AROL stood in the gap to defend the integrity of AILA and its members. And I have to name the two people who led the charge, Jerry Greca and Kathleen Campbell Walker. Thank you. You took this on when it had been so much easier to just keep your heads down, but you did not do that. You led with clarity and with spine, and you remind this entire bar that the rule of law is not just a slogan on a banner. It's something you have to be willing to fight for. And so on behalf of all of us, we are very grateful. If you want to see the work of this committee up close, go to the panel this week, Protecting and Defending Your Client and Yourself, because at this moment, those two things are the same. And it's not just ourselves we're protecting. Look at what AILA members did in the courtrooms this year. When the administration tried to gut the BIA appeal process in immigration court, a federal court stopped in and due process held. It tried to force millions of individuals into mandatory detention, and over 400 different district courts around the country in different district court decisions and 3 different circuit court appeals struck that down. And when it slammed the court on people seeking asylum, a court reopened it and vacated the ban. And as of today, the promise of the 14th Amendment, that fight's not over, but in 22 states, it still stands. Case after case, court after court, this administration has learned the same lesson. The Constitution still has lawyers, and they're in this room. And even when we fought those fires, we refused to look down at our own feet. We looked up. We looked ahead at where this profession is growing. And that was the work of the AILA Futures Task Force. And it was led by someone I happen to know rather well. My wife, my law partner, my co-pilot, Kirby Joseph. Thank you. That report has a name, Future Ready, the Next Decade of Immigration Law and Practice. And I really, really, really encourage everyone in the room to read it because it asks the questions that most organizations are too busy to ask. What does artificial intelligence, generative and now agentic, look like? And how does it impact the way that we practice immigration law? What happens to firm economics, to fee structures, to the way that we deliver legal services? And how do we handle burnout before it handles us? How do we build the next generation of this profession so that they want to actually spend a career doing the work? 10 different issues, all discussing the forces that will reshape this practice over the next decade. Named, studied, and laid out so that we can meet these challenges, these opportunities with our eyes wide open. You heard me say it earlier, AILA does not drift. And that line comes from the foreword that I wrote for this report. Because that's what it is. This report is not a prediction, it's an invitation. An invitation to stop just reacting to the profession, but to start building it. We're not bystanders to the future of immigration law. We are actually its stewards and architects of its future. And the future is not just going to happen to us. We will have to build it intentionally, strategically, and together. So the report is not a document for a shelf. It's actually a map. It's a compass. And it will make this association's choices wiser for an entire decade. Kirby, to you and the committee, thank you for this and for so much more. And again, if you want to learn more about the Futures report, there will be a number of roundtables coming out in the future, so I encourage you to attend those. Before I let you go, there are a number of people that I want to take an opportunity to thank. First of all, to my executive committee, Alexis, Jackie, Reka, Michelle, Dave, Kelly, and of course, Ben. Thank you for the hours, the late calls, the weekends that you gave back to this association without ever being asked twice, and for the forever friendships that we've made along the way. You are what leadership is supposed to look like, and it's been one of the great honors of my life to serve beside you on the executive committee, so thank you. And to Kirby, my co-pilot in everything, you carried this year right alongside me, and every trip, every missed dinner, every moment where I had a phone in my hand, I thank you, and I appreciate you for doing it alongside with me. And finally, to the members of AILA, yes, thank you. To the members of AILA, thank you for your trust. You handed me this honor of leading this association at a really tumultuous time. And there's not been a single day that I've taken it lightly. It's been truly the privilege of my career. And so here's what I'll leave you with. I said at the beginning, and I'll say it again, we're living through a moment that is testing this profession like few moments ever have. The pressure is real, the attacks are real, the exhaustion is real. We feel it. But look around this room one more time. A bar that just did what generations of AILA lawyers tried to do and said couldn't be done, we did it. We built its leaders instead of waiting for them. When the rule of law was under fire, we didn't just flinch, we organized. And a bar that even in our hardest year, facing the hardest challenge, had the courage and the nerve to look up and plan for the future. That's not a bar that drifts. That's a crew that took the helm and committed, because we're not passengers on this tide. We're stewards of our profession, we are architects of its future, and we have our hands on the sail. So while you're here this week, go to the sessions, get better at this craft that we have given our lives and our careers to, and find the lawyer who is 1 year behind you and tap them on the shoulder and pull them forward. And then after this conference, go back home and do the big, brave, consequential, necessary work that only we know how to do. The water ahead is rough, and I'm not going to promise you that it's going to be easy, but this bar has never been more prepared. So once again, chart the course, trim the sail, hold the line, and together we'll steer towards the distance and into the light. So thank you very much, and I really appreciate it.